Welcome. LWV Rochester welcomes you to our continuing presentations on local government. Tonight's presentation is entitled Know Your Parks, an update on Rochester Parks Master Plan. My name is Anna Froling, and I'm president of LWV Rochester, and I will be moderating this evening's discussion. LWV is a volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to vote and participate in government. I want to thank LWV members for organizing this event. Due to COVID-19 and the decision not to meet in person, this online event is in lieu of our annual holiday luncheon and general membership meeting, which we invite the public. Amy Cockett, she's attending tonight, a longtime member as well as a very active current member, invited members to her house today to pick up a small plate of holiday cookies to make things more festive. So thank you, Amy. Now on to our evening's program. In November 2020, 61% of Rochester voters approved a referendum granting the Park Department increased funding equal to the property tax rate increase of 0.168%. In 2021, this was $2 million. Do you wonder where they've used the money? To begin with, the Parks Division manages 120 city parks, totaling 4,200 acres, as well as 85 miles of surface trails. They are also developing a new park, Game Haven Reservoir, which includes a new driftless disc golf course. We'll learn more from our speakers. So we have two speakers this evening who will give us details about Rochester Parks Plan. Paul Widman is the Director of Parks and Recreation, and Mike Negber, Park and Forestry Division Head. A few housekeeping suggestions. Following Paul and Mike's presentation, we will have time for questions. Please enter your questions through Zoom chat box. LWV members will be monitoring questions and passing them on to me to ask during the last part of the program. Zoom instructions. This program is being recorded and will be made available via our link on our website and Facebook page. You are welcome and encouraged to turn on your cameras. To avoid distraction, attendees' microphones will remain muted. And open the chat box to ask questions, find additional information, and links to information. We'll get started with our first speaker, Paul Widman, Director of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for coming to this evening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Amy, for inviting us and helping coordinate this. And I am just so grateful that we have this technology that allows events like this to continue safely. And so again, we love to talk about the Rochester Park System. And as mentioned in the introduction, there are a lot of exciting things going on in Rochester in relationship to parks and parks funding, and we'll be sharing that information. I just wanted to introduce myself before we get started. I can't believe in January, it will be 8 years that I've been with the city of Rochester. We have an outstanding team of 63 employees, very dedicated to making Rochester the best it can be. And we do some amazing things as a team to keep our park system well maintained with the resources available. And so I just wanted to give a thank you to our team. I moved here from Nashville, Tennessee. You probably could tell that from my accent, but actually I'm not from Nashville. I grew up in Oregon. Nashville was a stop on my career that just happened rather unexpectedly. I came to know the director there from attending a conference, and there were just so many exciting things going on, and he invited me to apply for a position there, and spent a good portion of my career in Nashville. Coming to Rochester was a great move for our family for probably many of the reasons that you live in Rochester. We've come to love this community. We had 3 of our children at home when we arrived, and we are almost empty nesters now. We have a junior that's at JM, John Marshall. So that's a little bit about myself. And now I want to start introducing you to the park system. And I'm going to take us back quite a few years. And if this was an open forum, I'd ask this question, but I'll just go ahead and give the answer to the very first park in Rochester. That was Central Park. And that started the park system in Rochester in 1856. And when William Lowry donated land that became Central Park. It became more or less the town square, and very much as you see it today, that Central Park was established. A little fun fact that our Central Park predates New York Central Park by, I believe it's about 4 years. Now, since 1856, I'm not going to go through every year, but we've grown quite a bit, and even during that time, our residents really rallied around the park system, and there was a volunteer board early in that history, and that transitioned in 1904 to our park board. And I believe we have one park board member attending today, Angie Gupta, and she is part of a very rich tradition we have in Rochester. The board was established by city charter, and that board governs the park board. They approve all of our purchasing and direction for the park system. And it's a very unique situation in many ways, in that our city council approves our funding, and then the park board takes it from there, sets the pace for our team, our staff, and we have a very active board, one that just as early on in our history, they're very engaged and passionate about the park system. Now, over the history, and many of you are aware of this, we've fallen behind in maintaining the rich history and maintaining the park system. And that's something that Mike Nigber, who you'll hear from soon, is very passionate about raising our standards. And he was instrumental in the planning and putting together of our park system plan. And that came together in 2015, was the final approval for that by our board and council came in 2016. And you'll hear more details, but that just sets the pace for addressing all the infrastructure needs we have, but also looking at how do we adjust and grow the system to keep up with the growth in Rochester and the expected growth over the next few years. And it is an excellent plan. Ever since we've had that plan, we've used it pretty much as our blueprint for every decision we make. In fact, we've gotten in the habit of every time we bring something to our park board to be acted on, we provide a brief synopsis of how the decision they're about to make, how it relates to that plan. So it's really helped guide our decision making. That plan identified $90 million worth of improvements needed in the park system. And that was in 2015. You hear a lot about an inflation in the news, and construction costs. So you can take a pretty safe bet that we're at about $100 million in improvements that are needed. And with that, we set out to establish funding to tackle that. And one of the big milestones that was mentioned was the last year's voter approved tax levy. Interesting trivia there is that was, as mentioned, was approved by 62%. And it passed in all but one of the voting precincts. And so there's some pretty significant desire from the community that was expressed that they'd like to see improvements in the park system. Now, how we go about that and the path forward, Mike is going to spend some time on that. I'd like to introduce you to Mike Nigber. Mike is the division leader over Parks and Forestry Division, and that's really not an apt title. It doesn't share all that he does. He has takes the lead in our planning, and has definitely has the credentials and experience to lead that effort. And with that, I just want to turn the time over to him and to again thank you for inviting us to be here tonight.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. I do appreciate it. As Paul said, I'm a credentialed employee for the city of Rochester. Been here for 25 years. I'm a landscape architect, certified land planner. So again, that planning background is inherent with what I've done over the years and what I do today as well. So with that, I'm going to get going into the slide deck. So just give me a moment here to share my screen, if you don't mind. And just confirm, please, that you can see that once you can.
Yep.
Great,
yep.
Thank you. So as Paul talked about, I'll kind of reiterate some of those things as we go through, but I want to take you back and kind of explain a few things about what we do in our park, both park operations in the city of Rochester, the Park and Recreation Department. So again, expectations for today, when people think of park and recreation, they think of three different things. They think of the TV show, which is always great and funny. It's not reality, but it is a great show. They think of us going out in mowers and riding around cutting grass, which we do, not quite like this, but we do that. And then we think about, sitting by the pool and being lifeguards and kind of relaxing and having fun. We like to have fun at work, but not quite in that way. So we'll talk about what we do real briefly in the different divisions and different areas of our department. Then we'll get into the proposed projects, park system plan, and park highlights and questions if you got time for those things. So we'll jump right in. And again, as I talked about initially on, we do a variety of things not necessarily reflected in those TV shows. So again, these are a few pictures, and you'll see pictures throughout the slide deck of different things that our team does. And it's really quite a wide variety of things that and skill sets that are necessary for this group. So starting off with our administration area, there's 4 different members of that team that work, and they do our basic kind of heart of that organization things: accounting, office coordination, the front office work, answering phone calls, working with our customers on a daily basis. Those are really important things. And this a small core group of people, again, represent us on a daily basis, and they're the faces of our department. You can see on these logos on here, the top left logo is our earliest logo we could find. It probably is about 60 years old or someplace in that range of era of age. And the lower left-hand corner is our new current logo, which we just adopted here this past year. So again, from oldest to newest, we've been around for a long time, well in excess of 150 years or something like that. So a very, very long time, as Paul referenced. This next division is our parks, our recreation facilities. These are the bigger facilities that you think of for recreation center, the Graham Arena, the volleyball center, the ice rinks. These are big things that people think of for recreation, the indoor sites. But along with that, though, they do some really important things along with the rest of the community. Pipsqueak's an indoor playground. Many people don't know about that little activity, but it's a very important part of our community as well. Accessible recreation, again, another key factor of providing equity across our system, getting people in our parks that may not have the ability to do so on their own. So again, it's a great program. Mobile recreation, taking our parks and programming activities out to the people in different parks across the system. Pool operations they work on, the recreational leagues for adults for the most part, and space reservations for gardens and shelter reservations and park spaces to provide our park spaces for the community to utilize. The next division is the golf division. Again, another pretty small core group of people managing big spaces of property. So again, they manage the 4 courses: Eastwood, Northern Hills, Soldiers Field, and Hadley Creek. Each one is a unique characteristic. Along with then Hadley Creek is also our first tee program, where we're teaching kids to learn the game of golf and bringing them forward to create that long-standing tradition in Rochester of a heavy golf community. These members in our golf division, again, manage a lot of property, and they do it in a very high caliber fashion, which is what people expect for here in Rochester. We do some challenges here with our clubhouses, except for one. But in reality, it provided a great experience across the entire system for people of all abilities, again, from those learning out to the heavy experienced ones that may golf at Eastwood Golf Course. The last division is really where I'm going to focus more time on. That's my division. And we've got about 41 members that we have working with us on a daily basis. Now you bring back in our seasonal staff members, you almost double that group of people to about 80 to 90 during our summertime operations. So pretty big facility and operation we manage. We deal with things for park operations, so all encompassing, the forestry operations, parkway landscape maintenance, so the things like along 2nd Street area, the high quality landscaping you see there, or our bridge decks, our team maintains that. Our downtown central business district, so the landscaping down around the downtown area, we manage that. Our flood control program is jointly managed between ourselves and Public Works. They take care of the hard infrastructure like piping and the rock and things like that. We take care of the nice looking stuff like the landscaping, the trails, and the vegetation. And lastly, we manage the Plummer House. That's a historic center, historic building that we work with. And in fact, our recreation folks also program that with us. So again, it's kind of jointly done, both that's internally of our department though. To do all the work we do, we need to have skilled professionals. And I mentioned I'm a landscape architect and certified planner, but we've got others in our division that we need for our skill set. So professional arborists, the folks that work on our trees. These are skilled people that know how to cut trees safely. They know the identification, know what the diseases are. They are just truly skilled individuals. Recreation management professionals. These are our manager teams, folks that help guide our crews out in the field. We have electricians on staff, building maintenance professionals. Again, we have lots of assets we got to maintain. We need skilled people to do so. Landscape maintenance, you think of the mowing activity we currently do on a daily basis. That's just not what a landscaper does. They deal with plant material, diseases on grasses, diseases in plants, invasive management. So again, it's a skill set that's necessary, including things like how to do a controlled burn to manage those invasives. Then lastly, irrigation specialists, how to manage the pumps, electricians or electrical components, the piping, how to fix those things, how to install them. Again, a wide variety of skills are necessary just to perform our work that we have on a daily basis. It's not a person off the street doing it from day one. These are skilled people, educated people that come forward to us. So how do we do, or what do we do as part of our park system? And again, the list is long. These next 3 slides, I won't read each component down there, but look at the pictures, look at a few words, you'll kind of get the feeling that we do a heck of a lot. It's pretty amazing what we do. And funny that the first picture you might see on there says crow abatement. This time of year, we start our crow abatement activity. It starts between November 1st and December 1st, and we do that through about early February. And we haze crows, we bother them so they don't defecate in the downtown area as much as they would if we left them alone. So it's a unique characteristic that we took on here in 2012 and have continued that on, except for last year during the pandemic. But you can see the list on the left there, really talking about what we do. Snow removal. We manage 50 miles of trails and sidewalks on a daily basis, for snowing activities. People think Public Works does the only snow removal. We do a heck of a lot in our own department, along with 50 different parking lots along the system as well. But development review for new construction going on around town, we manage that. Contract administration for park projects, landscape maintenance, graffiti, and homeless abatement. We manage and help manage and coordinate tournaments that are happening in our park system. Animal management like crows, geese, gophers, you name it. In our system, we do manage those things as well. Those are doing the damage that we have to take care of. Next page here is really just a more listing of the things we do: electrical repairs, vegetation management, stream bank management from an erosion standpoint, making sure we don't lose a trail or our infrastructure because of a storming event or a flooding event. We acquire lots of property throughout the year, playground maintenance and installation, sidewalk installations. We develop gardens. We hang the Christmas decorations around downtown. So again, if you see that, it's our team doing that. So you may not recognize that, but again, the things we get involved in are wide and varied. The last slide on what we do is things like site plan development or park planning, like this top left corner there. We do field grooming, field maintenance, field restoration. The lower left-hand picture, we educate. We actually work with the SAC program for the school district and bring kids out and teach them about what we do, how we do things, get them educated, get them involved in our system. We do tree pruning classes. We do tree planting classes or programs. Again, getting the community involved in our whole operations. What we do, we can't do by ourselves. And again, we look at volunteer activities throughout our entire system, both from a field maintenance to a trail grooming to, again, helping to plant trees is a big factor of what we do. We also, though, we partner with a lot of other folks, internal to the city, like administration, police department, who does some programmatic activities, RPU, who helps out with some tree trimming along their power lines, public works, we have a lot of synergy with working on different activities. Library does programmatic activities along with music and MCC, Mayo Civic Center. Then other outside groups like, excuse me, the Amateur Sports Commission, who holds tournaments and other activities in our parks. Active Sports Club, a great partner of ours. They do a lot of trail grooming and development in various parks like Graham Haven Park or Essex Park, et cetera. A group like Arts for Trails, a grassroots organization to bring awareness of arts to our community and develop temporary and permanent art sculptures along our trail system in the near downtown area. These different groups play a vital role in the quality of park system you have and the amenities that you appreciate today. Along with that, then we also work outside government agencies like the DNR, state of Minnesota, and various townships and the county folks. Again, important partners in our system as well. Without these folks, we can't have the system we're providing today. So on to our park system. Paul talked about our park system a little bit, but when you think of it, break it down to the real basics. It's a series of parks and trails throughout Rochester, a wide variety of types of parks meant for recreation, relaxation, gathering, good for the environment, good for your health. So these things are really important to the quality of life in the city of Rochester. And this is reflected in the various surveys we've done over the years. This dates back, many, many years where the About You survey came into play. Our park system planning, our park system plan surveys on this very left-hand image, I guess is what you call it, gave us information back on our park system. We have a 2019, 2018 quality surveys that were done for the city of Rochester. Then most recently, a 2021 park system review kind of provided insight to how we're doing on our park system, what people want to see as well. And really, when you see what these different graphs show and different surveys have provided, is people love our parks. They want them as a higher quality. They love our trails. They want more of them. And just overall, they're happy with our parks, but they want more and better and bigger. So that's the real takeaway that I provide to most people. It's not uncommon to see those kind of things happening. It's just a reality of how we're going to be going forward into the future. That gets back to how our park system plan became adopted. And that really provides that guidance as to what is important. Where do we go from here? As Paul mentions, a 20-year plan. It provides our guidance on sustainability, our priorities, our allocation of assets, making sure we're equitable across the entire system. Along with that, though, we've got master plans adopted for each individual park, or for many different individual parks. That provides more detailed review on those specific parks. Then lastly, for guidance, we look at our strategic plan. And that plan was adopted in 2015 with some updates and sets our department vision from an operational standpoint. So we look at our park system overall, and I'm going to kind of correct what was said earlier on. We've got 139 plus parks and growing, basically every year as new development happens or as we acquire new properties. These include neighborhood parks, those small parks around where you live, the larger parks like community and regional parks, athletic fields, environmental corridors. These are all part of that park system that make up that bigger number. And we're quite a bit larger than many cities of our size. But again, over the years, the city has said, this is what we want, go forth and provide that system that we do desire. And we've been doing that for the last 50 years or so about. Included with those parks in our playgrounds, athletic fields, and again, 5,000 acres of property that we manage. Part of that's in flood control, part of that is in our park system directly, part of it's in the natural landscape areas that we manage along the highway corridors as well. So again, it's a wide variety of things that we do manage from a space standpoint, but kind of put things in perspective, we mow about 2,000 acres every week. Again, so you think about your yard, that may be 1/10 of an acre to 1/4 of an acre. So put that in scale things of how much land area we do mow on a weekly basis. And again, 50 miles of trails and sidewalks we manage, over 100,000 trees that we manage in our parks and boulevards. A lot of trees that we got to manage. And again, we've got a master plan that we're working through the adoption process right now on that, as a matter of fact. So the bigger parks that we do somewhat focus on, because they're kind of the big bang for the dollar, are the regional parks and our community parks. So Quarry Hill, Cascade Lake, Game Haven are those 3 large regional parks. The community parks are kind of those that you also know and love, Silver Lake and Soldiers Field. Maybe some that you aren't quite familiar with, like maybe you aren't familiar with Slatterly Park or Kutsky Park. They're kind of more regional focus in the community. You may not get to those. But each of these bigger parks has amenities that serve the entire community in some fashion or other. The tennis courts, the basketball courts, the parking lots, they probably have more trails, more picnic shelters, things like that. These amenities that people actually go to specifically to gather bigger, larger events across the area. Again, not like your neighborhood parks, which is meant for that specific geographic location around your house. So I mentioned challenges earlier on with our park system. You know, Paul talked about the $100 million program, and we only get $2 million per year. It's a 50 million or 50-year program, if you look at it that way. That's one challenge that we had. That's the funding side of things. But there's also challenges that people want higher quality parks than what we are able to provide. And we do a pretty good job with what we have, but they do want more. They want amenities now, which again is a challenge also. They want it. They don't want to wait 20 years to get this nice park. They want it in their area sooner than what we can provide it in some cases. Homelessness, graffiti, and damage. That's been a constant problem over the years, but I would say the last 5 years is really increasing in challenges for us. And again, it takes much more of our staff time to manage these and to mitigate these. And again, the picture in the center is becoming, unfortunately, much more common to deal with for our team. We were out, I think it was last week or the week prior to that, with 12 different staff members for about 3 hours cleaning up a homeless camp. And again, it's just a lot of debris, a lot of tonnage that we got to take away and garbage. And our staff is involved, police officers are involved. It becomes a challenge for us to maintain those activities. And when we do that, we take away our activities from something else that does need our attention. We've got competing uses. So again, as the system evolves and grows, different user groups have different desires for our community and what they want to see for park activities. So I'm going to take 2 activities here, tennis and pickleball. They both use court space. They both want more court space, but they both can't have more court space. So there's part of the challenge. The additional challenge too is those courts are used differently. You can play pickleball on a tennis court. You can't play tennis on a pickleball court. The size of those courts are quite a bit different in size. Think about a tennis court, or 2 tennis courts will take on 6 pickleball courts as a scale of operation. That's just one example of how competing interests play out. And again, what we've got to manage in this, not only our current operational standards, but as even new ideas come forward across the timeline here, we've got to learn how to address that and meet those needs of our community. The last 2 we talked about, funding was always a challenge. Staffing is also a challenge. Again, we've got a growing system, and the amount of people needed for, whether it's forestry operations to maintain our trees or to mow our 5,000 acres of property, just takes a lot of staff time to do so. So with that, we're going to jump into our park projects and priorities. We're going to start with our prioritization. That's a key factor of what we do in determining where we go next. And as Paul talked about, our park system is our guide. It's our main guide for what we're going to be doing here or planning for. But we also look at those park master plans. So like, for example, at Soldiers Field or Cascade Lake, we got master plans there. What do those master plans show? Are we keeping in compliance with that master plan? Should those master plans be evolving with our times and new ideas and changes that may come forward? We look at safety. We look at asset preservation, which is different than safety. It's things that are maintaining what we have. We look at enhancements that people want to see at a park, whether it's they want to see more natural vegetation, they want to see a new shelter, they want to see more tables or picnic tables or trees, for example. These are all enhancements that take time, effort, and dollars to go forward with. We look at staffing resources. Do we have the staff capacity to either implement or to maintain once it is implemented? That's a factor we've got to consider because we know we're not going to get staffing that we need to have as an ongoing as we expand our system. Equipment resources kind of falls in the same as staffing resources. How do we manage those as we expand our system or implement new projects? Then managing the new initiatives that we want to do. This is all a giant balancing act or puzzle pieces. It depends how you want to look at it. They almost fit together to meet the entire needs of the entire community. And I said that entirety quite a couple times there because it's really important because my priority is going to be different than your priority and different from your neighbor's priority. We have different goals, different desires, different passions that we want to see in our parks. And not one single event or activity is right. So we've got to take those different inputs and balance them along with safety and those other things I just mentioned to provide that park system that the vast majority of people can use and enjoy. Along with that then is key 3 factors. That's our financial sustainability, staffing sustainability, and environmental sustainability. And when you say sustainability, the environment comes to play most of the time for people's mind, but those other two components are critical to our success as well. I just want to point that out. Along with that, then we look at our implementation side of things. And when we talk about the priorities, we have to look at the backside of the implementation. So where do those things fall? Is it into facilities? Do we need to do different marketing? How do we program the activities once we're all there? And then how do we maintain and improve that system again once the facilities are in place too? So again, it's a multi-component activity to address not only new things, but the old things along with that. So that's kind of the background of a lot of different things here. Now we're getting to the real fun stuff, the park prioritizations. In our park system plan, we actually, this is in 2015 and 16, we actually identified key components that we needed to go forward with to make improvements. And it was basic things like finish out Cascade Lake. It's been on the books for 25 years. Let's get that thing done. So that was a high factor priority in our park system planning. Trail system restoration. And again, people love our trails. They want to make it sure it's safe and enjoyable to ride on. So again, that was high on the list of things to do. Completion of Quarry Hill. That Quarry Hill Park has been around since 65, 66, something like that. The Nature Center has been around since about 1972. And again, it was well worn and well loved. It had to be updated. We went through a process here to update that in 2018 over a course of years. And people still want to see more and more of that done. The recent park system survey, like I said, in 2021, Quarry Hill ranked really, really high on that list of things that they like to do and things they want to fund to keep it going. So again, a very high priority identified back in 2015 and 16. And the list goes on, and things that we knew about, things we didn't know about, but things we are working towards. And some things will evolve over time to some extent, and some things will stay the same. So for example, we've heard upgrading about the skate park for a very, very long time. And that's on our list to do. In this master planning coming forward on Silver Lake, that will be one component that we're going to look at how we're going to make that a reality going forward. Again, this is our kind of map or roadmap to keep things moving forward for our park system planning. This is also supported then by that survey that was done here recently, just a couple months ago. So with that background of information, we developed a project listing about 3 years ago in anticipation at some point in time we'll have the referendum dollars and more CIP funding to kind of plan ahead. And we developed this prioritization list that we're now working through with City Council. So we broke this down into golf, kind of the same areas we talked about for our department areas. So golf, facilities, and then the general parks area. So the golf activities for prioritization was just general system improvements, making it better. We got some longstanding drainage issues at Northern Hills Golf Course we want to correct. We're doing part of that now with the developer on a couple of holes, but there's more work to be done there. The Eastwood Clubhouse, again, that was redeveloped in 2008, but never was really fully completed. So the parking lot completion out there, some bunker repairs, along with then an Eastwood Clubhouse, that bottom line right there. Something is needed out there to address the old clubhouse that's there and how do we manage the golf operations out of a facility. Northern Hills, some work out there along with we did some new improvements at the clubhouse out there. So that's kind of checked off the list. It looks great out there if you've not been out there. That's a new picture right there on the right-hand side. There's some Hadley Creek, some minor modifications for one of the holes that's been actually a wetland hole that kind of grew and grew and grew unanticipated. So it's an environmental challenge that kind of crept up on us that we weren't aware of. On the facilities side, we're lucky that we've done some improvements over the years with actually some sales tax projects. So if you may recall, we actually enhanced the recreation center and senior center with some sales tax dollars. There's still more to be done there with some air handling units and some other activities. A roofing project as well. Graham, not much to be done out at Graham. We're paying back over a 20-year time frame some of the borrowed money we utilized early on. And then locker room enhancements at recreation center. That's to address some capacity issues and to really separate families from the general public in that recreation center area. So again, it's a enhancement to the area to make our customers more comfortable and happy at our facility. In our parks area, again, we got a long list of things here that we can go on, and we've looked at over 10 years of the different lists of projects. And again, the list is long, but relatively important. So again, I won't read every one of these to you, but I will tell you that This has been evolving based on community input, based on professional staff input, based on the surveys we've had done, based on our park system planning, et cetera. So again, it's kind of cross-representational across the entire city. And some things in here, like I said, Quarry Hill's on that list to keep things going there. Cascade Lake, we're well underway there. In fact, if you don't know, we got some bonding dollars here assigned to us. So the next phase of construction will be starting here in 2022 with a new amphitheater, a new park shelter, a park pavilion, which is where the restroom facilities are. And we'll talk about that too. It's in my list of projects to talk about here towards the end, I guess. Playground replacement. When you saw our list of projects or amenities for our parks, like I had, 89 or 90 playgrounds on that list. Believe it or not, about 30 of those are in dire need of replacement right now. They're at least 20 years old. They've probably got some safety or at least change standards on safety that we need to address. So as park referendum dollars, we're looking at replacing some of that outdated equipment to make it much more safe as well. New development for playgrounds and neighborhood parks, that's important. Improvements to our field areas, like for example at Milquillen for lighting and landscaping and plaza development. I'll keep on going here for the listing. We talked about Soldiers Field master plan improvements and a master plan implementation. We're going through that master plan process again right now, along with Silver Lake. There's about, between those two different projects, $11 to $12 million in projects on those two parks alone, again, to make improvements that the public has been asking for. I'll tell you up front, does not include a second pool at this point in time. That's one of the conversations that we have to have with City Council and others. How do we make that happen? Our park system planning efforts really looked at a much more cautious or modest, realistic implementation plan, knowing that we were not going to get all the funding we were going to need over this next 20 years. In doing so, though, we had to make sacrifices or prioritize. And we've prioritized by having one great pool at Soldiers Field and making splash pads around the rest of the community. Splash pads are another aquatic feature, not swimming, but it gets engaged with water activities in some fashion. Again, is it desirable? Do we want to have more pools? I think the answer from our professional staff is yes, but again, how are you going to fund it? You can't fund it with the current programs we currently have right now. So again, we're making decisions and prioritizing based on the most bang for the dollar across the entire system. Trail development. Again, I mentioned that previously that trails are well loved in our community. They want more trails. We've got 5 different trails identified, I think 4 of which are identified right here. Silver Lake, Soldiers Field area, make connections there. Crimson Ridge out northwest of Rochester. And then Cascade Creek going from basically 2nd Street at Circle Drive, going west furtherly by another up to 45th Street, which is 45th Avenue, another half mile or thereabouts. So again, gets people out into nature, gets them into exercise and health. It's a great activity for everybody. Then real basic things like pavement maintenance. That's not very exciting, but it actually has to be done, whether on our trails or in our parking lots. They're important aspects to make sure our people can get to our park amenities and to utilize them safely. Other projects you see on this list here, again, there's a whole raft of them, but river access, and getting people back to nature, different way of getting people to aquatics. Dog park improvements. Again, dog parks are a well-loved amenity here in our community, and we've got some great facilities. People do want more. They want better amenities. They want water at their stations. They want shading at their stations. So again, making sure we meet that demand and that desire is really important. As noted, our prioritized projects are fallout based on that criteria utilized earlier. It then ends up in a capital improvement program, a 6-year plan adopted by City Council. And from there, we adopt an annual list internally to say, okay, we've got these bigger projects identified on our system list. We also have a lot of operational things in our list as well. Fencing replacement that we do on a yearly basis, or field renovations, or we got to fix that pothole. Some real minor things that you probably have no idea we even do, but they have to be done on an operational basis anyways. This all falls out in the CIP implementation through contracted operations projects, through staff completed projects, along then with projects we actually contract out to get completed because we can't do everything by ourselves. So that's the listing of how we prioritize, what we prioritize to date. And again, that conversation is still going on with our park board and with the City Council. We've got a pretty good understanding right now of where we're at for 2021, and we're working on 2022 and beyond currently. And we think that there might be a potential, if you've listened to the council meetings, looking at an advanced construct program where we're going to bring $15 million in park improvements over a really short period of time. that's using that referendum allocation, at least half of that allocation. What that will do is get more projects done faster for our community to enjoy, which is a big factor that we believe in, as well as the park board. With that, I'm going to jump into some park programs, unless you want to cut me off on time. I'm not sure your timing right now, but we okay on time?
You're okay to go.
Oh, all right. So our first park we're going to talk about is Game Haven Park. This is really our newest park, newest major park. It's a regional park, and where it originally developed from is a flood mitigation program. So 25 years ago, the City of Rochester identified 7 reservoirs around the community to help provide flood protection for our community. This is one of those areas. But since 2014, we went through a process for master planning, and we were identified by the state of Minnesota as a regional park of significance. What that did do for us, opened up grant funding available to us to help develop this park into a nature-based for outdoor recreation. We currently cover 465 acres of land, which joins the Scout Reservation, the Boy Scout camp of 250 acres, and it provides archery, fishing, some trails, and I'm going to talk about the next phase of what we're doing right now. But basically, we had 2 legacy grants, which is really a key factor across, you get $12 million a year, $8 million a year from legacy available. They usually have between $16 and $24 million of asks. So over 2 different cycles, we've gotten $1 million plus each time. So great success for the City of Rochester doing so. It helped develop this current park project that we're currently working on right now. And right now, we have developed a new entry drive in parking and utilities. We've developed and working with RASC on walking and hiking trails and the ski trails. So we're doing man-made snowmaking out at Game Haven for the first time ever in our community. And we're doing it out there along with RASC to make this a very effective skiing operation. We have a sledding hill that will be planned to be a tubing hill at some point in time, but really for the first year, 2 or 3 or 4, it's gonna be just a sledding hill. We'll have snow-made snow on top of that to enhance that experience that you can't find elsewhere in our community. We're building a restroom facility, nature play, which is a kids' nature play area in the park. It's awesome. If you've not been out there, go out there once the road construction is done out there. And then we have a disc golf course, brand new, 18 holes of championship caliber course and another 9 holes of more recreational, my ability kind of course. But we have, even before we open, people playing the course without even the baskets being in place. And we had our first tournament out there here about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And of the 60 players that were out there, approximately 60 players, all but 5 were from out of town. And as a regional facility, one of the goals is to bring people to Rochester. And this park is already doing that, even with a small tournament as we just had. So this park is really a great feature. And again, we have 2 different roads. We have 45th Street, which is off of St. Bridget Road out by the Target South area, Lowe's area, if you look at that area. And 50th Street on the very south end of the park, which abuts the Olmsted County Regional Training Facility and the County Public Works Service Center area. That's where the main public access will be in the future once those roads are done being constructed. But you can see on the center of the map, the tubing hill, that's the sledding hill. The yellow areas are kind of roughly the ski trails ultimately. We are going to focus on the bottom side of the tubing hill on the right-hand side, along with then some trails elsewhere around. Again, this is a long-term plan. We're not quite there yet, but we are expanding it dramatically as in a very short order. So some of the activities that we see at Game Haven, whether you're paddle boarding on the lake area, or whether you're mountain biking, which currently exists out there, we're looking at a future pump park. So again, a skills bike park area. Fishing already happens, like I mentioned. Archery is already happening out there. We want to improve that as time goes on as well. The nature play is also already in place. So again, things are out there to make this park a great 4-season park. So the skiing activities that we talked about, snow, fat tire biking in the snow is out there currently, ice fishing, and then the sledding hill, tubing hill is our first year of operation. These next pictures are just basically during construction and things that we've done throughout the course of the project here. So again, the underground utilities, the roadway construction. But what's more unique here is the things that we've done is recycling ash wood in our system to make benches and activities out here for seating for the park area. But we planted over 100 new trees, established about 30 acres of prairie. So things that were formerly cropped agriculture, we now made more natural. We constructed a new bridge. It's the new bridge up behind me in my scene here that you see behind my head. Utilities, grading and seating, driving and parking lot is done. Custom benches and the disc golf, like I mentioned, is already completed. This is a series of other pictures that we have out there to give you an idea of what we've done. And this slide, by the way, the yellow slide out there is awesome. It's probably about 40 feet long, so our longest slide that we have. And as an adult, I've gone down it, and it's meant for kids, I can tell you that. So, but I'd suggest you give it a try anyways while you're out there. The next steps we have for this park is we have a restroom that's designed. We got to get it constructed and built. That will be happening next spring. And then we've got the cross-country skiing trails. And so the ultimate map approximately that's out there, along with the sledding hill, that we'll be implementing here this winter. So again, our first time out there. And if you get a chance, please go try it. The next park we have is Cascade Lake Park. And Cascade Lake Park is a 25-year-old park. So 2004 was adopted. In fact, there's some master planning that was done in the late 1990s. But that park area is 225 acres in size. The plan was adopted in 2004, and we amended it slightly in 2016. But the end goal was to have 100 acres of water, which we are pretty close to. We want to have some relocated creek, which we did, again, to great expense. Trail expansions, like we talked about here, for people who love trails. So we did that around the entire lake now. We constructed a beach, which we started utilizing here the last couple of years. We did some habitat restoration along the north shoreline, again, to provide that environmental important part of our community as well, and make things safe, sustainable. Then again, landscaping and et cetera around the park, the active part of the park in the south end. And here again, we were able to secure 2 different grants. One grant for the habitat restoration, a grant for legacy of 1.55 million. And then also we just were awarded bonding dollars this past year to improve the park even further. So the next image is our 2016 master plan. So if you look at the right-hand side, the right-hand side is basically almost complete. The right-hand circle or oval on the very top corner, that's partially built playground, but we're going to expand that playground as part of this next phase of development. The center circle area, that's part of a water plaza area in our park pavilion where the restroom facilities will be. That roadway coming in like a lollipop, that will be a drop-off area that will be constructed. And then the northwest corner, the circle up there, is a new amphitheater that we're working on development also. So it's a big project, about a $5.5 million project that will be implemented here over the next year and a half to 2 years. So that's the goal for that park project there. And again, Cascade Lake, I was asked earlier on what's my favorite parks. Game Haven Park is the newest park that we built. It's awesome. It's one of my favorites. Cascade Lake is one of my favorites. It's kind of my career-long park development, both public works and in the park department. And then Quarry Hill, which I will not talk about today, but that's also one of my favorite parks. But Cascade Lake, if you've not been out there, has some great amenities, great vegetation. It's a great place to go walk around. I think right now, based on our last counts, we have over 100,000 walkers around that lake every year. So it's an awesome area, highly utilized. You can see the world when you walk around there. Age, demographic, cultural diversity. It's just a great place to be. We even, by the way, have some art in the park, things we've added on over the years. So again, this is part of the main project area too. The left picture is a carving that was inspired by a trip I had to in Belgium where I saw carvings on trees like that. These trees are, by the way, are upside down. So the roots are kind of functioning as the hair. It's pretty awesome. We did several calls for art, and that centerpiece of the call for art that one of the sculptors provided to us. And then even the landscaping provides an art piece by itself. It's just a great place to be. This next picture then is the beach area and then the playground area that currently exists. And we plan on expanding that as this next phase of construction goes on as well. So what's left to do? Basically, there's the water feature, which part of that will come this next play. Accessible play. Again, we'll have some of that activity done as part of this next phase of construction. We've also sought an additional grant by Legacy to see if they'll finish that area out, which will double the size of the playground area itself. We think it's pretty important, and we hope that will be successful. The park pavilion, the park shelter, amphitheater, we're doing a fishing pier with DNR concurrently with that, and some more additional art. So these last pictures are some images of the water features, for example, or even the park pavilion. We're looking at one. It'll probably be somewhat similar to what you see in that middle picture right there, at least from a architecture feeling of it anyways. And then the amphitheater, We're still vetting that out. My guess is probably something more like, wrong screen, probably something more like this second column or second row, third from the left-hand side. So that kind of peaked wooden structure. We'll see how it plays out. But that's kind of where my vision is. The next park then, if we have time, we'll go into Silver Lake. This is actually one of our older parks for our community, dredged out by hand. It's been around for a very, very long time, developed in the 1920s. And the park size is about 136 acres, depending on how you measure it. About 100 acres if you lie north of 7th Street. There's some more property to the south of 7th Street. So really it's what you view as being the part of the lake or part of the park itself. The water body is actually relatively small, about 40 acres in size. The original size of the lake was 17 acres, so it's expanded over time with damming and other excavations. So this park has been growing over the many years through different acquisitions, through different work elements, through different amenity enhancements. Again, it's been done and supported by several organizations, whether it's for Suratoma through some playground improvements, or the Kiwanis, or through the county health department. We've done improvements with this park over time. This is an old historic photo of Silver Lake area while they're excavating. This is teams of horses dragging dirt out of the area, or carrying blocks of soil when it's frozen. And again, 1940s aerial photo of kind of the work that was done. So again, quite a bit of work done during the CCC era of Conservation Corps. So what's out at Silver Lake? If you've not been there, we have 4 different picnic shelters, pavilion areas, 4 playground areas, some natural buffer along the lake, which is controversial, good and bad. Paved trails, which people love again. Baseball, diamond, soccer field areas. We got a fishing pier, a skate park and bicycle garden. We have the current pool, which is planned to be changed to a splash pad at some point in time, if everything goes as planned, but it may change and be another pool, who knows. The old fire station, that is now a park asset that we utilize, or will be utilizing. It's currently being used for a homeless day shelter. Then interpretive information. So there's stormwater signage around the lake itself. There's health information that provided by Olmsted County Health elsewhere around. So again, it will provide education as well as recreation during this process. So as amenities too are, I suppose, iconic features like the bridges that are out there, or the East Shelter. Those were developed, during that CCC timeframe of the 1930s, and are almost iconic. I would call them iconic for our city of Rochester. Again, the other pool amenities and landscaping amenities that are out there. And then right now we're actually starting the history side of master planning for Silver Lake, and that's currently ongoing currently. We'll be seeking a consultant for our master planning efforts. But even once we do that master planning effort, there's things that we do know about already based on our park system plan. Skate park improvements were outlined on improvement in our park system planning. Playground enhancements already outlined. Aquatics already outlined, but how will that evolve over time? If there's a big push to get a second pool, that may change our current planning efforts. There's a planned trail. If you look at that bottom picture, that's the only portion of Silver Lake Park where there is no trail. So there's plans to put a trail along that north side of the lake to complete that trail network. It's been desired for quite a long time, both for transportation as well as recreational amenity. Then our historical review is currently ongoing, which will be fed right back into that master planning effort. So other work that's happening in the area you probably heard about. This is the dam modification and how that will play out. These are things that are being talked about because it's now a council priority to dredge the lake as part of our flood control program. It's been 25 years since it's been dredged and is now in need of it, or at least in the next couple of years is in need of dredging to maintain our flood control capacity and conveyance system that we have out there. Along with that, though, while we're dredging and lowering that water body down, we're thinking that there's other opportunities here to develop amenities. One is to enhance and put a bike trail going north-south over the lake to take away that narrow, what I would call unsafe sidewalk that's currently on Broadway. If you've ever walked on Broadway across that bridge, cars are whizzing by, inches from where you're walking. It's not a very calm and relaxing scenario. So having a pedestrian bridge going north on the lake would be very enjoyable. And the second is that North Ped Bridge or North Ped Trail along the north shore of the lake, again, provide that connectivity, which then links up to the trail going all the way up past the rec center and beyond to basically 37th Street, 41st Street, and Essex Park. this is the area what it would look like if the dam is evolves and is changed from the current configuration, which is a vertical structure, to a much more sustainable, again, environmentally sustainable, more of a rapids or cascading pools down slope of that, which provides then habitat connections for aquatic invertebrates going up and downstream, along with the recreational activity that you can go paddle down through that area in a kayak, for example. So that's these two different images. And with that, that concludes the presentation that I have, and I would be welcoming any questions that you might have. Let me stop sharing my screen. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. That was all informative, and I really like that idea about that bike path over North Broadway, or the Silver Lake, because we use that all the time, and it is a little dicey there. So yes, I like that idea.
Dicey is a good word for it.
Yes, yes. And I plan to go out on Saturday. I think the We Bike Rochester is planning on having a bike ride on Saturday. So
because Broadway's opening, that's right.
Yep, on Saturday. So I want to, and thank you very much. That was very informative. I want to introduce, I think it's important to highlight local residents who serve on our city boards. And I want to introduce Angela Gupta. She represents Ward 2 Parks and Rec Commissioner, and she's serving in her second term. Her day job is at the U of M Extension Professor of Forestry. She has 2 teenage boys and are regular bike commuters and daily park users. And also she has been making a plan. She's visited many of the local parks. There's 100 of them. And you can tell us a little bit about where you're at on that path. So welcome, Angela.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Excellent, super. So yeah, thanks for having me. I am here to represent, I think, the Park and Rec Board as a member who's serving on that board. And yeah, visiting all the parks. So I was kind of starting sort of slowly in the beginning, and then I found myself, as my sons are in activities throughout the city, soccer and track and whatnot, I've been visiting parks as I wait for pickup. And it's been quite fun to get to all of the different quadrants and trying to find all of the parks. Finding them can sometimes be quite a challenge, but it's really a wonderful system, and I've enjoyed working on it.
I am muted. So thank you. And we're going to have questions from the audience. Would you be prepared to answer some of the questions along with Paul and Mike?
Sure. And maybe before we do that, I will just put a little context around what the board does, separate from what Paul and Mike do as staff. And so I'll just read you quickly, and then I can drop in the link to the Park and Rec Board mission. And the mission of the board, separate from the staff, is to oversee the park system and services for recreation and leisure enjoyment as developed and gifted by past generations for current and future generations of residents and visitors by 3 points: preserving and enhancing the city park facilities, green space, and natural resources, promoting healthy lifestyles and a sense of community, and providing policy direction to Park and Recreations Department management. And so I think that last one offers a little insight to the position of the board. So we are not doing the everyday management. That's up to the professionals at Parks and Rec staff. Rather, we offer oversight and direction as a board. And we are represented, nominated by the mayor and approved by city council, and we are meant to represent our ward. And so it's a slightly different approach than, say, a city council member. But I'm happy to answer questions. That seems appropriate.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to, and thanks for joining us tonight. We'll move on to the question part. So the presentation portion is completed. And if you choose to leave now, we thank you for attending. I know some people can't stay for the whole hour and a half. Please remember to submit your questions through the Q&A. We do have lots of questions, so I'm going to get to them right away. We will try to answer as many as we can. And I'll start with the first one that came up. Does Parks manage the deer population in Rochester? And what can you tell us about the process and the challenges involved? And I know we had a deer we don't have a great big backyard, but we had deer under our tree, and our neighbors came over and said, you know, you should be doing something about that. And I was like, I have no idea what to do. So tell me about the deer control in Rochester and if you're responsible for that. And
Well,
Paul, do you want to start? Thank you.
yeah, I'll start out, and you have two other people that are actively involved in that with Angela Gupta and Mike, actively involved in our current pursuit to look at options to manage the deer population. First of all, we currently do not manage deer in the park system or anywhere else in the city. However, because of the ongoing conflicts, as you've mentioned, and those range from vehicle accidents to the destruction of vegetation and young trees, there's just countless encounters like that are going on, and the population seems to be growing. We have, we're looking at this as a citywide issue. Of course, deer are mobile, and they're on private property as well as park property. Although we recognize that with the 5,000 acres that you heard about tonight, that we provide a lot of habitat for deer. We are looking at putting together a management plan to address this. If culling the population becomes part of that plan, which it likely will be, just because if you look at other communities that are managing the population, that is one of the obvious steps. But if that happens, what we ideally would like to do is work with residents in the community. There's a great model up north or in this Minneapolis area, where there is a group of bow hunters that organize themselves, and they have insurance. They qualify their members who participate in the program. Safety is a high priority, and we're looking at that model as well as others. As I said, citywide issues. So the departments that are involved right now are Parks and Recreation and Public Works and Community Development. And hopefully we'll have something actionable by next season, 2022.
And Mike and Angela, do you want to add anything? Or if you do, you can add something. You can send a message to me in chat, and for the other questions too. Okay, so I will move on to the next question because I want to.
Well, I'll jump in and say a little bit. So I'm really delighted about this effort to manage for deer. So as a natural resource professional, the deer herd is really detrimental to native vegetation, and it makes it really hard to manage our natural areas with the deer herd as high as it is. And so I'm really, really excited that we're looking at a way in which to manage that more closely. Thanks.
Yep. And I know both of my boulevard trees got hit by antler, stags brushing their antlers. So that's kind of disappointing. Anyway, we will move on to the next question. Not all about me. So here's a question. What is the plan and what are the priorities for managing invasive species? The garlic mustard near the bluebells on the Mayowood Trail is one example. And who would like to take this?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite places to go in the springtime, by the way. So it's really important that we do that as well. Garlic mustard is a real challenge. It's very invasive. It's got a lot of seed head on each plant that disperses quite a ways. It tracks with people along the trail, so it gets distributed that way along with it. Invasive management, and Angie can chime in too, but is a real challenge across our entire system. Buckthorn and garlic mustard and wild parsnip are three big components that are creating real havoc to us. And I'm not sure there's a real good answer to any one of them. It's probably to be the best answers to, we do the best we can with the staffing we've got. And it's both going to be chemical application, mechanical, and natural that we try to minimize these with. But it's an ongoing battle.
Okay, I'll jump in to add to that. It is definitely an ongoing battle. I would also say that there are volunteers at Quarry Hill that work really regularly to help manage the invasive species there. I suspect they would be happy to hear from any potential recruits. And so, you know, we can all make a difference by watching what we track around, cleaning our boots and shoes, and watching what we plant in our landscape. I mean, buckthorn is a hedge that is planted throughout Old Rochester to this day. So if you would like to do your part, feel free to remove that and plant something native. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll move on to another question. This is the Game Haven Park plan. Sounds wonderful. I haven't made it out there, and that's on my bucket list now for local things. Will there be a public transportation available to Game Haven Park? This should be accessible to our entire community. And
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So again, part of the challenge we have is we're one department. We don't manage a transit system. So transit tries to focus on where their biggest benefit is to serve the population. Parks does not always meet their goals. So, but we have been working with them to get better bus service to our locations. Game Haven might be a while, but we are working towards a trail program right now as we speak to get Willow Creek Trail extended out to Game Haven Park. That's one activity that can help provide access points to the parks through our natural trail systems. So that is a trail that we've asked state bonding dollars for. I think we're on our 3rd or 4th year asking for that. So this year might be successful. We're sure hoping that. But transit at our parks is a real challenge, but we are working with the transit folks on that on an annual basis.
okay, anybody else? I'll go on to our next question. So this is a city in Italy, Siena, I believe, feeds their pigeons, but adds birth control to the mix, effectively ridding the city of the pigeon problem. Has this ever been considered for the crow problems here? And we keep talking about deer and crow and all the invasive species. So who would like to go ahead with this question?
I'll take the crow population, that problem.
Okay.
We deal with the crows annually, starting right now and going through, like I said earlier on, through about early to mid-February. And we started working with crows about 2011, 2012 with the Department of Agriculture. And they provided the guidance to us that we currently utilize today about how we should do things, how we operate, poisoning, not poisoning, birth control. These all have been talked about. Effective measures really boils down to, can you guarantee using poisons or birth control to those crows and having no other impact to other desired animals, whether it's eagles or to other protected species? And the answer is no, you really can't. So Department of Ag has not allowed us or suggests we don't even go down that path. So we are resolved to try and bother them to a point where they don't like staying in the downtown area and disperse them further out in our community. I would say up until last year, we've done a pretty good job with that. We saw effects. Does not guarantee no issues, but it has mitigated it over the years as compared to when we first started.
Thank you. This question is, and excuse me if I missed some of it because I was reading questions, if you addressed any of these things in your presentation. There seems to be a disconnect between Park and Rec's interest in having pools and the public interest in having them. Why is removing Silver Lake Pool even being considered?
So that's a great question. And maybe I'll start and Paul can chime in also. But as I talked about earlier on, we've got to set priorities based on available funding that we have and expected funding we'll see long-term. And right now, the way we've been funded over the years, our park system plan said, you know what, it's a pretty modest plan to go forward with. We can't afford to have 2 or more pools put into place. That's not a disconnect because staffing believes that we could support additional pools also, but for the fact that we need money to do so. If we can't get money to support them properly, then you better scale back your plan so you can provide facilities that are adequate and accessible and maintainable rather than having more of them that you can't do so with. So it's not a disconnect, it's a matter of, again, prioritization.
Yeah, I would just echo what Mike said. It's not that we don't want to have those facilities or others. When as we've been making the rounds with community engagement prior to the referendum that passed, and especially after that, we're getting a lot of feedback about, well, rather than, I not only want 2 pools, I want one of them to be a water park. And that goes way beyond the, first of all, the referendum funding that we have available, and goes even beyond that $100 million worth of projects we talked about. So if we're to make adjustments, which we can, it's going to be a matter of increasing the funding stream somehow. And no one likes really to talk about that because that impacts our, our property taxes to a greater extent. And then the other thing is that we could look at trade-offs. Well, what are we not going to do so we can have 2 to 3 pools? And that would take away some other priorities, playgrounds, courts, other things that are not only in high demand, but are in great need of repair and improvement. So, it's not us saying no, it's just how can we best provide a mix of programs and a mix of facilities and updates with the funding we have available.
I'd add one more thing, and I would just say that while we may hear people say we want a second pool, we hear the other side saying we also want other things that Paul just referenced, because people want lots of different things. We just can't have everything in the quantities that people want. That's the real challenge.
Now to go back to the Game Haven, the accessibility, one of the audience member threw out this, what about a couple special days, weekend, try transit for fun pilot to some of those parks to see if folks will go to Game Haven and Cascade. Has that
awesome idea? That's the best answer. It's an awesome idea. Unfortunately, we don't control the transit, but we can sure make the suggestion. And we actually have done that in the past.
Okay, and you can partner with transit. And you could use that little people mover, that little 15-mile-an-hour thing. I know it takes too long to go out there, but that'd be a great idea too. So I'm going to go on to another question. Let's see. Sorry. The rec center seems to center more on accommodating the needs of clubs, teams, rather than the general public. Can you address that?
I'll take a shot at that. That's come up quite a bit. And the rec center is doing exactly what it was designed for. We talked about this earlier. It actually before the program began tonight, we had a little side conversation, but the main body of water there is a competitive pool, and it's designed for just for that, for swim meets, for swim lessons, and diving. And so that's the purpose it serves. Now, during the renovations and updates, we added a warm water pool, which also supports the competitive activities, but it does give an option for more open swim activities that we coordinate between Parks and Recreation and 125 Live. Now, as far as serving the public, the majority of the users, even though we have regional events, the majority of users are right here in Rochester. They're the kids that are learning to swim, the kids that are on swim teams, the high school, and even the middle school, junior high kids are involved in those competitive programs. You can use that same model for the ice 2 rinks that we have at the rec center. We have the Grizzlies, we have Rochester Youth Hockey, and we also have the figure skating group that has their program there as well. Yeah, they're a specialized program, but the participants are from our local community.
Okay, thank you. This seems like a fairly quick question to answer is, when we're talking about the Game Haven new park and sledders, will the restrooms be open in winter for sledders?
So the answer is no. The restrooms are seasonal, but we will have portable toilets out there. And again, the idea is that ultimately there'll be a chalet that will provide, full 4-season, full restroom capabilities at some future date, but that's a long-term plan.
So the porta potties will be able to be used during the winter?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's facilities for bathrooms, but it's not
not heated
built.
restrooms.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. More questions. So we're going back to the geese. Speaking of competing uses, how can we have beaches for swimmers with all the geese in Rochester? And at least I know I read in the paper is that Cascade beach is frequently closed because of the E. coli.
I'll take that. I thought we'd get through this evening without talking about geese, but it actually is. I won't say it's one of my favorite subjects, but it's one that I dove into several years ago, and the more I learn, the more I see it as an issue that needs to be addressed. So I appreciate the question. I don't want to go into the weeds, but I just will challenge you to really get some basic knowledge of the population of geese we have here. There's really two populations that are key in learning about what we're dealing with. There's the migratory geese, and you've probably heard them as you've you know, when I walk my dog at night, I hear them flying in from the north. They're migrating in from the Arctic regions of Canada. And, you know, you'll see abundance of geese at Silver Lake Park and other areas during the winter. Now, the geese that are the issue with the water quality and other conflicts are the resident geese. And that goes back to the days when geese were domesticated. And what happens is that this goes back to the 1800s. If somebody wanted to raise geese on their farm or have them on their property, they would clip the wings of a migratory goose or geese. And if they go through one season of not migrating back north, they will stay here year round. That it cuts off that migratory instinct, and they become that's where the term comes from. They stay here year round. They do a brief molt migration in the summer, but what makes it problematic is there are really no natural predators of the geese, and they have been populated. The population has grown. Where we see the conflicts is the goose droppings, and there's areas where they clear out the vegetation, the turf in the park. That's what they like to eat. And so controlling the population is something we took on last year, and we're doing that again this year. We use a method recommended by the Humane Society of the United States, and that involves keeping the eggs from hatching, and it doesn't reduce the population, it just keeps it from growing. So that's where we are with geese management. Just a side note, I don't think it really had a whole lot to do with our efforts last year, but we only had to close the beach once this past season. And the reason I'm saying I don't think our geese management really kicked in yet, because it's only one season that we've done this. So all the adults of population are still around. We didn't, you know, that didn't impact them at all. So we are continuing to work on that and address the goose conflicts that we have in Rochester.
What's the lifespan of the geese? And then do you know, like?
Yes, 10 to 15 years.
Oh, so that may take a while.
And just to kind of give you a feel for the issue, there were 340 eggs around Silver Lake Park last year that we treated, kept them from hatching. If you think about that, 340, you know, year after year, that's you know, assuming that they're, you know, the population would grow around that much. That's quite a growth rate. Fun fact, not so fun fact, 50 geese produce 2.5 tons of excrement a day. And so that's just kind of tells you where the water quality is impacted. And that's the major conflict we have with geese.
And Mike, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, just a quick note on water quality. So Cascade Lake is a very shallow, warm water body of water, which is not uncommon in Minnesota. And the difference, though, is why you hear about Cascade Lake being closed down is we actually test the waters to see what that level is. My speculation, the speculation from our professional staff, is that many other lakes in the community or in the state have the same problem. They just aren't testing for it. When you listen to Minneapolis, they do test their lakes as well, and they're often closing them down just as much as we are. So it's not an uncommon phenomenon. It's just a reality of a shallow water body lake.
And does Cascade have an inlet and an outlet, or is it?
It does have a monitor outlet, but it doesn't flow directly. It's not a creek outlet. It's all
Okay.
upwelling groundwater fed.
Okay.
And I'll just jump in there and say, I don't think I heard them say it, but they all know it, so maybe they forgot. So we only managed geese in 4 different parks: Silver Lake, Cascade, Soldiers Field, and Foster Errand. 2 of those, of course, are beach lakes. So again, trying to manage for water quality and human recreation. And then Silver Lake has a tremendous geese population pressure. And then Soldiers Field, of course, there were geese conflicts on the golf course. So it was a really pretty targeted approach to those geese. It was not a citywide effort to eradicate geese by any means. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for jumping in, Angela. Another question, because we do have a lot of questions. I'm going to try to get to many of them. What about non-competitive fun uses for the pools and the gyms? We were talking about the rec center, and especially too about the winter non-competitive fun uses. People are wondering, or a questioner has that as a question.
Good question. The rec center pool, the main body of water just is not designed for recreational use. The shallow point of the pool is 4.5 feet, so it really doesn't work well for young kids. They have had, the swim club has had a few open swim events where they have flotation devices. But again, they're few and far between, because the main demand for that pool is for the swim teams and learn to swim programs. Now, with the addition of the warm water pool at that facility, there is more recreational use, but it really wasn't designed as an open swim type facility.
So the Y is not a part of the Parks and Rec, right?
It is not.
So in the winter, there's really not a lot of non-competitive swim availability for residents. Is that correct?
Well, the Y is set up more for recreation as compared to the rec center. And the one thing I wanted to add, the water temperature for competitive use is a lot colder than even our outdoor pools. So that's another factor. It's just really not a desirable recreation setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much funding have you received from state legacy funding, bonding, and maybe also any COVID money?
I'll take a shot at the legacy and bonding. And again, the bonding, let's talk about more recently. We've gotten 2.5 million allocated for the Cascade Lake area. For legacy, let me give a quick thought here. We're probably close to almost $5 million in legacy funding from our different sources, $4 million from legacy sources that we've gotten. So again, we've done pretty well in that pool of money that's available for our portion of the state. As far as the CARES funding, I don't know the exact dollar amounts, but we did have CARES funding provided some tree planting activities and some art in our parks. And Paul, you may have those numbers, but I don't have the direct numbers what we are allocated. But there's bigger funds allocated across the city for the CARES funding.
Yeah, I don't have the the actual numbers. I know in our department it was the funds were used to supplement nearly $1.5 million reduction we took last year in response to COVID. So it wasn't an addition, it was pretty much a stopgap to kind of keep us through last year to make it into this year, where our operating budget was restored, not quite to the level it was in 2019, but we were operational compared to where we were last year.
I'll just
Can I
add one
just-
more note on the grants,
Go
if
ahead.
I just may. Since 2011, when I came to Park and Rec, and this is not all me doing this work, so don't get that impression, but we have gathered or garnered about almost $14 million in grant funding. That includes some bonding dollars. We provide some local match, but that provided a project budget of about $23 million. So some big impact using outside sources of funding. That's various grants and activities.
I just want to jump in. I'm not going to talk about funding specifically, but I want to point out to everyone that the COVID pandemic started in March of 2020, right when Parks and Rec staff would normally have been hiring their summer seasonal help. And that summer seasonal help does a lot of heavy lifting for the park system throughout the summer, and they weren't able to do that in 2020. So when most of the Rochester community was rediscovering their local parks because of stay-at-home orders related to the pandemic, Parks and Rec staff was working tremendous hours to keep things afloat, and lots of things got canceled, but just to keep those parks in great working order was a real challenge that they stepped up and did before the funding eventually came through. So I just want to give a huge kudos and shout out to the Parks and Rec staff for all of their hard work in 2020. Everyone was stressed, a lot of people rediscovering their neighborhood parks, and these guys were keeping them open for everyone with no seasonal staff at all. So it was a tremendous lift.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. One note on that, we have a community that I think really understands our park system and is in tune with what's going on. I was really surprised at the patience that people had with extended mowing cycles during last year. And again, as Angie said, more people were in parks than ever in my time here. It was incredible, and we really appreciate the community's rallying around the challenges we had. It was a difficult year, but felt like we were in it together with the entire community.
2 years. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, well, this year's a lot better than last year, but yeah, your point well taken. I agree.
So I want to go, there was a question, I can't find it now, but it was about when you went to the parks, the garbage wasn't being collected. Where's the status of that now?
I took geese, so Mike gets to take that one.
Sure, I'll take that one. It's not a very popular topic, believe it or not. Or maybe it is popular, just not the right way. Garbage, people generate garbage. Garbage is not created in the parks. Garbage is brought to the parks and left there in some cases. So when we look at how philosophically we want to manage our trash management across the park system, we believe some trash is appropriate and how we manage it is appropriate. However, things like our neighborhood parks, where people are walking to those parks and taking their picnics, lunches there, or their soda cans there, they are more than able to carry their trash back home with them. That's a philosophy of mine. It's something we see across state systems and federal systems, the pack in, pack out concept. Yeah, we utilized and implemented that kind of almost wholesale across the park system during the pandemic with a lot of success, I would say. There was some opposition, some pointed saying, we're gonna put this dog waste bag by your park sign so you see that I had trash, but I want to leave it for you so you can find it. So they're kind of pointing out that they still want some trash cans. And we brought trash cans back this year for that very reason. We're being much more targeted, though, as to where we place them to get the biggest needs. So we aren't driving all over Kingdom Come to get to the trash cans either, like we used to do. We're being much more strategic about that.
Okay, I have 2 more questions I have to ask. Some of these programs, we don't get very many questions, but there are tons of questions. So thank you for staying just a few minutes late. So this question is, okay, I'm gonna find it. The plan does not, okay, so this is about the 125 Live, I believe. Yeah, the plan does not currently include the word senior or elder, yet Park and Rec facilities house the only senior citizen services provided by the City of Rochester. The current contractor for these services, 125 Live, is also not mentioned in the plan. Olmsted County is participating in the robust, age-friendly program sponsored by AARP and the World Health Organization. How can we be assured that the City of Rochester will attend to these growing needs of our residents?
Well, I'll just start out by sharing that we take a holistic approach to parks and recreation and our programs and facilities. So we're in business for all ages. And I would point out that there are age groups and demographics identified in our plan that we do, you know, as a priority. And so that's as I said, it's we're here for the entire community, and we whether or not stated in the plan, I think if you talk to any parks and recreation professional and you ask them what are your highest priorities, who are your who's your target audience that you're you know you're investing in, and if you could do nothing else, what is that? And it's always youth and teens, or I'm sorry, seniors and teens. And those are the traditionally where we invest program dollars, because they are populations that are either at risk when you're talking about youth, or in the case of seniors, have the greatest amount of leisure time and also benefit the most from the health benefits of a robust parks and recreation system.
If I could add one more thing.
Yeah.
I would just say that if you look at how we operate from a department, we use a lot of partnerships in our programmatic activities. We don't do a lot of programming specifically in interior of our department. We work with others to provide that programming. So that's a challenge that we do have, to make sure those needs are always met. It is problematic for us.
Okay, and one last question, and this is kind of like, this is a question asked by the audience, but I'm concerned about it too, because I go over this all the time. There is concern that the Silver Lake will be turned into a river if we remove the dam. The picture kind of reinforces it, that's what I think, Mike, what you showed. I mean, was the pictures you were showing.
Yes.
And will there be a discernible lake if the dam is removed?
The answer is yes. The lake will still be there for the most part. And again, the very north or westerly section does get converted to water to river area, but the majority of the lake does remain the same. And I think I'm going from memory here. And unfortunately, I don't have the most current picture. That was just provided here in the last couple of days, to be honest with you. But I've got a viewpoint that I could, if I could find it in time, I would do so. But it shows a different viewpoint from what I showed you. And it's from the east side looking to the west. And again, the majority of the lake remains intact. So the water body is about 40 acres in size right now. About 33 acres remains after that conversion, maybe a little more than that. So not much is taken away.
Okay, thank you all of our speakers this evening. I want to thank Paul Widman, Mike Nigber, and Angela Gupta. And thank you, Angela. I know it was short notice that you got the invitation from us. I want to thank you for your service to the community and your work on making Rochester a more enjoyable place to live, with parks, park facilities, and paths for us all. For more information about the parks, as well as League of Women Voters, local and state, please check out the links in our chat box. While there, you can join or renew your membership with LWV Rochester by clicking on the join link. I want to let you know about 2 upcoming events. Medical aid and dying, that's what we're going to have in January 25th, 7 to 8:30. We have a presentation by Dr. Rebecca Tolman, and she's a Minnesota physician. And she will be talking about the legislative movement for death with dignity. And then our annual program planning will be Sunday, February 5th at 10 a.m. And we will welcome everyone to join us, or the board member or the members to join us at that event, and public to learn more about our National League of Women Voters positions that we are focusing on this upcoming year. I want to thank everyone for coming. I know I didn't get to all the questions. Thank you for staying a little late to answer some of those questions. And we appreciate your presentations tonight and your work on public parks. I know I've done things at the parks that like golfing and cross-country skiing that I haven't done in years with the pandemic. So I thank you for those opportunities. Thank you and good night to everyone. Good night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Angela. And thank you, Paul and Mike. Good night.